Revelation 12:11. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. For they loved not their lives, even unto death.
The things that have been inflicted onto me, the things that I've inflicted onto myself, the Lord healed me completely.
All things, all beings submit to him. I could speak the name of Jesus and that evil would leave.
All I could feel was a peace and him say, "Not yet, daughter."
I called his name, and within a second, my breathing was restored and I could breathe normally again. I could not believe it.
And I saw Jesus interceding for me. And he said to me, "I've been protecting you from things you never even knew about."
Martyria. Welcome to episode 13, Jessica's Martyria, Whatever I Want and the Evil Spirit. We've all said it before, anything but that. But what happens when whatever that is the one thing we truly need? So join us now as we have natural talk about Jessica's supernatural walk.
So, we were raised Christian. We were raised going to the church. At one point, we were going to the church, 3 times a week. I think it was even 3 to 4 times, almost every day, it seemed like. But the household that I grew up in was very angry, and a lot of we experienced a lot of, at least me and my sister and I experienced a lot of church trauma, forcing to go to church, it was just like a lot of things was just really pushed in a negative attitude instead of, gentle. So for me, it was just kind of like, okay, like, let's go, like, let's just go. I wasn't really into it or didn't really understand it until I was in middle school, and I was just kind of like, why are we even here on this earth? Dad, why are we here? Like, why are we here?
Oh yeah, the simple
And
questions.
yeah. And he shared the Purpose Driven Life with me, the book. And I read the whole thing and took notes on it like crazy. I was like up until 3 a.m. just going crazy, like taking notes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my eyes open. I was like, this is why, like, this is what we're just, life is all about love, and we're just here to love people. And and then I had 2 neighbors that I would hang out with, and I would like, hey, come over. Like, I need to tell you guys, I need to show you guys this. Like, let's do like a little study about this. Like, look at what God's doing, and look what he's done and why we're here and what we're supposed to be doing instead of living our own lives. So there was that time that I was on fire for God. At 12 years old, I was 7th grade. But it was maybe a little bit after, I'm trying to pinpoint, when I was in 9th grade that I met a boy and I started getting away from God. That's whenever everything kind of went downhill, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm Christian, but I was really lukewarm, and I wasn't, following everything. Like, the fire dimmed down and eventually burned out. And those neighbors that I had, we didn't see each other anymore, and I started hanging out with different people, and just different, a different kind of environment and crowd that I was in the school. And what I was looking for, because I had complained so many times to my parents that I'm so lonely. I don't have any friends, and this. And I saw that kind of attention from, the guy, and I was like, oh, like, I just, was consumed by it. And I was like, forgot everything else. And that's pretty much what took me away from really living as a Christian.
Hmm. It's amazing how boyfriend or girlfriend can do that sort of thing. I know when I was about that same age, 8th grade, 9th grade, where it was like all of a sudden, like, yes, I was a Christian. Yes, I was involved in church and I played the drums and I did this and that, but I totally was consumed by my girlfriend and that whole situation. And yeah, it's interesting how, the developing mind just completely wants to, I don't know. I wonder if there is something to that, because I know a lot of people who have a story like that where it's like I was on fire and then all of a sudden I met a girl and everything changed, or I met a boy and everything changed. Like I stopped playing sports. I stopped doing a whole lot of things because all of a sudden I didn't have time for anything like that. I just had time for my girlfriend.
Mm, yeah. No, I think it really, when you have that kind of attention and you're not used to it, your body is just like, "Whoa, I need to get, another." I don't know if it's dopamine or whatever it is, that another hit of that attention, like, "Wow, this is new, this is different," of anything that I've ever experienced.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I don't know if it is dopamine or serotonin, but either one. I
Whatever it
know, I
is.
know. I think you're probably right. I think it is dopamine, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like all of a sudden it makes our body happy, and so
Mhm.
we just kind of crave more and more and more of it. And unfortunately, a lot of other things that probably were more beneficial to us at the time kind of fade away.
Yeah.
So this is, you said, kind of ninth grade, 10th grade, when you kind
Mhm.
of got into the relationships and things with kind of your relationship with the Lord kind of cooled off a little bit. Um, so what kind of happens after that? Are you just kind of like, are you still going to church at the time? Because I know you said your parents were kind of like, we're going to church 3, 4 times a week. So you're still having to go to church, but then also making time for like your boyfriend, kind of your new friend group and everything like that as well, right?
Well, so the time that we were going to church frequently, that was maybe in middle school. I'm not sure, but it was only because I wanted to also get to know the Catholic church, because my mom is Catholic and my dad raised us in a non-denominational church. And I was like, well, because we do quinceañeras, and in order to do a quinceañera, you have to do a confirmation, obviously be
Mm,
baptized, confirmation, and a whole bunch of other things, because the church is also involved whenever you do your quinceañera.
mm,
And you can't do those things. I mean, obviously, nowadays people do it without the church, but for us, it was very important, to incorporate that. And so it was like I was going to the classes at the Catholic church and they were teaching me different things. I was like, huh, and the teacher was saying, oh, our Bible has, two more books than the other Bibles. And, our Bible is the original Bible. And so that kind of got me questioning, and like, Dad, why didn't you tell me, there's like books of the Bible that have been taken out and stuff like that. And I started kind of just like, I don't know, being a little confused. But long story short, the guy that I got involved with, I had one best friend that she was my best friend at that time. I met her maybe in 8th grade and we went to high school together. Um and and then I got involved with him, and but he lived on the other side of town, because I actually met him at church camp, and it's
mm,
so bad. But because he was not a Christian, his mom kind of just like made him go.
mm,
And he was not it was not a healthy relationship. And so we weren't allowed to see each other because of that. My dad was not comfortable with me seeing him, so we would see each other behind their back. And he lived all the way across town. So, um, I guess, long story short, I lost my virginity to him and I became pregnant
mm,
at 15 years old. Um, and I didn't know what to do. His mom had him when she was, I think, 16. Um, so, she was crying and she was saying, like, everything's going to be okay. And I just felt, first of all, I didn't even want to have sex. So that was, the first bad thing that I felt bad about. And whenever I told my parents, and well, they came to the house to talk with them, and we told our parents, and my mom just started breaking all of the plates out of the cabinet, just started throwing everything out of the cabinets and breaking everything.
Hmm.
And I I was just crying. I was just crying the whole time. And they didn't want me to have an abortion, and I had it. Um, my family members try to help me feel better by saying, it's just a clump of cells, just like, just kind of nothing. Um, I was screaming and crying at the abortion clinic, and people were all staring at me. I saw girls that looked maybe my age or younger in there. I saw all types of women in there. Um, and at one point, I don't know, maybe one of my parents said, "Well, we can wait or think about it or something." And I felt like, I don't know, like, if we're gonna do it, we have to do it now, because I can't handle this. And I don't know. Um, so I didn't really know what to think about it. They it seemed pretty clear to me that they didn't want me to have it. Um, and we went through with it, and before going in there, I did speak to someone. They were like, "Why are you screaming and crying and making a huge scene or drama show, I guess?" But I was um I was like, "Well, I don't want to do it." And they're like, "Well, um I just really felt like, I was 15, I had just started ninth grade. I was the type of girl that never, like, I didn't want to hurt any animal or like even bugs and stuff. So for me to like do something like that felt like I was killing myself.
Hmm.
And so we went through with it. They did the ultrasound, and I saw it on the ultrasound. They said I was 4 weeks. And my mom carried me out of the clinic after they were done. Um, I only remember like being put on, like laying down on the kind of the chair, the long chair that they lay you on, and where you straddle your legs on and put them on those those things.
Yeah,
And
the stirrups like that
yeah,
sort
the
of bed with the
syrups.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and after that, everything just went black, and I couldn't feel my whole entire body. Like, whenever my mom had to really carry me out, because my whole body was just numb, like to the point that I was drooling. And after that, I was just so depressed that I did that, and obviously, cut off contact with him, which hurt more, and hurt losing that, and then my relationship with him and his mom. And they were thinking, "No, it's gonna be okay. We can do it." Like, I did it with him and all this stuff. And um I I don't know how much time had passed, but or if it was a few months or a few weeks. But I um I was in the car with one of my family members, and we were on the freeway, and I just opened the door on the freeway, because I was just like, "Well, I don't even want to be here anymore, because I just feel so terrible of what I've done."
Hmm.
And I just feel like I feel like the worst person in the world. Like, how could I do that? Something like that, you know? And they grabbed me. They were driving, and they grabbed me, um and the car just went like that, on the freeway, and they closed the door like that. um and then when we got home, instead of being well, I don't know if I should say it like that, but they were angry that I did that, and so um they just beat me. And so, um, the rest of the time in high school, I was really depressed and suicidal, and I was trying to go to therapy, and I did get involved with some other guys, but I was really isolated from everyone, and I just had that one best friend that I mentioned, and she knew about it. Um, and I felt so alone, and I felt away from God, away from everyone, and I just wanted to die. And that kind of feeling, um, maybe never went away, because after like my whole high school career, I graduated, I got with someone else, and I had a few pregnancy scares with them, but then I would be so disappointed that I wasn't pregnant. And I kind of felt like, well, maybe it's wrong to, want to be pregnant because of what I did, and I'm trying to make up for it. Or, but I ended up marrying very young, just 2 years after I graduated high school. And I was another unhealthy relationship. So with that, um, I became pregnant after a year of being with him. And then when I became pregnant with our second child, I became very upset because I was like, well, I was already planning on leaving this marriage, and now I'm pregnant again.
Hmm.
And I was at university, and I was kind of like in a club. I think that's what it's called, like a club. It was a nonprofit leadership alliance. So it was a certification. It was a whole group of like nonprofit leaders um that you wanted to be a nonprofit professional, living like working for a nonprofit, and my goal was to have my own nonprofit one day, to serve children in foster care. And so that's why I was in it. And then I was embarrassed because they already saw me pregnant the first time, and then I got pregnant again. So they're like, oh, next year you're already pregnant again. And so after I became pregnant with my son, I was very, very depressed and suicidal. Suicidal while I was pregnant with him.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, maybe those thoughts will go away once I give birth, but they didn't. And it you think going to therapy and all these things will like make it better, but I feel like I did so much therapy, and I still wasn't okay. Because I did therapy that whole time in high school, and then therapy, a little bit of therapy here and there, during our marriage, and because I was feeling that postpartum depression after my son. So, um, I just feel like I've been depressed my whole life since I was 12 years old.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just like I had that as soon as I became aware of, what was going on in my life, I just had that spirit of sadness and depression. And, kids in the middle school would be like, oh, like she just needs to get over her problems. And, they didn't want to be around me. I was kind of like an Eeyore, like, just like, she's always sad all the time. Let's go, close to somebody that's fun. So,
When a couple things I'm kind of thinking about. Um, I guess the first thing I'd like to ask about is so you you have your experience at the clinic, and then your parents, your family. w- it seems like your parents were not exactly in favor of going through with it, while at the same time were wanting you to go through with it. But after that whole thing happened, what was their follow through? Like, what was their follow up with that? Like, did they talk with you? Like, and I don't understand maybe your family dynamics very well either, because I guess I'm trying to. The reason I'm asking is because so that happens. And then time goes on where clearly you're experiencing a weight on you for what what you went through with, to the point where you're trying to end your life, right? And
Mm.
so the family's response to that is, ah, you feel nothing, now you're going to feel something, and it's not going to be pleasant. And they um assault you, right? I mean, they hurt you. And I grew up in a family where I've had some rough experiences with my parents doing similar things, and it's um never the solution, to put it as absolutely mildly as I can. Um, but do your parents or your family at any point, like, sit down with you, try to ask, like, what's going on, or like try to get any sort of insight into why you wanted to do that, why you were trying to escape from a moving vehicle, like, those sorts of things? Did they ask you about that?
No.
Not really. Not really their thing, huh? Is that
No.
is that more your family dynamic, or is that just kind of the
I
way your
think
family is?
I think that's the dynamic because they never had hard conversations with me, even about sex. Any conversation that was uncomfortable, they just never had it.
Hmm,
And I just kind of figured things out on my own, or from my older sister. It was just kind of like learning things from her, learning things from middle school that, why are those guys making those moaning noises, being obnoxious?
mhm,
And or what does that mean? Or what does, all these things mean? I kind of had to figure it out on my own. And um nobody they would just be angry because I was angry at them as well, and I
mm,
hated them. And so all of our any of our interactions were just heated, and they were angry that I was angry, and I was angry because I hated them, and I didn't want to be there, and I didn't want to live, and I didn't want to be around them. And so it was just like living um living in such like an angry, like anger filled environment. It's tension. Like, as soon as you enter the room, there's tension, there's hurt, and there's pain. And it was just um and there was no talk of it. And even whenever um I would say I feel lonely or this or that, there was no connection.
hmm. And okay, so there's this environment of anger, of pain, of frustration, a lot of unspoken things happening. And at the same time, I know you said that you're feeling very depressed. How would you describe this? And I know this is a really nuanced question, right? But like, how would you describe that feeling of depression?
um at that time, in high school, I just felt I would just cry every day, and I just felt like I wish I could escape, or that someone could save me,
Hmm,
or like if there was any way to get out of this place. I felt stuck. I felt you know, that I felt in a cage. I felt like I was locked in a dungeon, and there was nowhere to go, and there was nothing to do except cry. And there
hmm,
was just, staring, being isolated, just isolated so long, and like day after day, just isolated. Being alone in my room so much, just alone in my room like every single day. It was extremely depressing. And then sometimes when I would cry really hard, I thought maybe they would check on me, and nobody would check.
hmm,
And other times, they didn't know how to respond, or they just ignored me, or if they did try to, I think there was maybe one time they checked on me, and I just yelled at them in anger. And so it's just kind of like, oh, we don't want to even check on her because she's just gonna yell at us.
hmm.
Because I did have that anger and pain. And um so it was just kind of like I really had to navigate it by myself.
I I think one of the reasons that I was like kind of curious about it is because and I talked with somebody else in another interview about the same sort of thing, that it's really interesting to see what people will do from a place of woundedness. And so if anger is all you're experiencing while at the same time experiencing this great depression, this great loneliness, they feed into each other. And then if anybody tries to interact with you, then all they're going to get is the absolute teeth, right? I mean, that's what it is, because you don't really have anything filling your mind that would want you to be gentle in response. But at the same time, though, like, your family is responding out of their own woundedness, I'm sure. And it may not just be woundedness because of your past or your experiences, but like their own woundedness that may be brought into it as well, right? So like, if it's tough to see that. I think, I mean, I can speak for myself as well, like knowing what that's like, being in knowing what it's like from my perspective, in a way where I have responded a lot out of woundedness, right? And now as a Christian, I'm learning how to respond out of abundance, out of God's abundance, and it's wholly different. The way that uh like the way that I respond to my oldest, who's 13 now. Well, my dad left when I was 12, and I was very, very nervous for when he was 11 and getting close to being 12, because I'm like, I don't really know what to do with him at this point, because I didn't have that for me, right? And so I think it would have, based on my own past, been easy to try to move him in a direction that would have kind of covered up for the sins of my own history, right? So again, that kind of like responding to him out of my own woundedness, my own wounded experiences at his age. But instead, as he was getting closer to being 11, from 11 to 12, I was like, God, I don't know what to do. Like, you know what to do. Could you let me know what to do, sort of thing? And so seeing, or so hearing, I guess, your history about how your family responded in some pretty aggressive ways, right? And you were responding out of some pretty hurt and broken ways. Everybody's broken, and so all we do to interact with each other is show each other our brokenness, and it just leaves everybody as broken as they started, kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? And that I think that's the absolute, I think that's the absolute sham of it, because then as you get older and you're in university and you're like, well, you know what might help some of this brokenness? A man. And so, like, let me get married. Let me have a kid. The kid's surely going to heal my woundedness. No, it doesn't. Maybe a second kid will heal my woundedness. And like, and this, not to make light of any of your life decisions, but this idea of, we're always from a chase of, from a place of brokenness, we're always chasing some sort of healing, some sort of fix, some sort of something, something that we can do to fix ourselves. And I feel like that's something that I see evident in a lot of people's lives, even my own life, when I'm just, like, not doing what I need to be doing. And instead of, like, reaching out to God, reaching out to kind of that fire that I knew when I was younger, when it's like, well, or I could try to fix it. And, obviously I don't have the right tools, because I can't seem to get it, I just can't seem to get it to work out. But I know that your relationship with your husband at the time was, you said you were intending to leave him, but then you got pregnant again. Did that force you to, like, stay with him, or did that actually encourage you maybe to leave a little bit quicker? And I don't know all the details about why, whatever, the dynamic of the relationship was, but I just know that you said it was not a good relationship. So, what, do you ultimately, like, separate? Is it before your second child is born? Is it after? What happens?
Yeah, so that um I think it was, a little bit of both things. I was already depressed during my pregnancy, and then after I had him, I felt unsupported. Because I did have them back to back. So it was almost like having twins, a 1 year old and then a newborn.
Hmm.
um, or 1.5 year old and a newborn, something like that. And um I was very sleep deprived to the point that I was hallucinating bugs. And so I would be in the kitchen, like, chopping up an onion or something, and I just see like a whole bunch of bugs everywhere. And then I like try to touch it and it's not there. And um I was every night that I lay down, I just felt like, oh my gosh, I just wish I could, lay down and not ever wake up. Like go to sleep and never wake up.
Mhm.
And I would just imagine myself, cuz there's a lake, behind my parents' yard, like, just drowning in the lake or putting myself in front of a car so that could kill me. And it would just kind of like flash in my mind, like just images of like me dying in some kind of way that was, around me at that time, which, I was at my parents' house, so the lake behind, um or, something kind of easier, quicker, which, just some car hitting me and killing me instantly. And so I was every single day was being like tormented with these images of myself dying and these thoughts, and it just felt like I couldn't breathe anymore being in that house. And I felt everybody was against me. I was, um I really felt like any kind of voice of concern that I would raise up, it was immediately pushed down. That, I'm dramatic, I'm crazy, I'm w- wrong. And I really started to feel like I was just a crazy person.
Hmm.
I really started to believe those things. And I did reach out to God. And at that point, I was like, well, if I don't get out of here, I might just fall through with this. And I don't want to leave these two innocent babies with my family, because I kept thinking about it. I thought about it so intensely. Like, if I can just die, like, and like, will they be okay? Will they be in good hands? Like, who am I gonna leave with them? And just really thinking, like, how they would be without me. Um, and so I was just like, no, I can't leave them, and I have to find a way to get out, even though I don't see a way. Um, and I found an organization. It was actually a Christian nonprofit online, that I went to apply to see if I could live there with my kids. It's a organization for moms, for single moms. And um but they did need to verify that these children were my children,
Hmm.
with their birth certificates and, social security cards. And I don't know how this happened. I think, oh, it was because I was trying to print out the application to that place. And I was very scared that, any of my family was going to see me printing this, because if they knew that I was trying to leave, it would just be a huge eruption of chaos. And somehow they found out that I was planning on leaving. And without my knowledge, I don't know at what point, but they stole our birth certificates and social security cards so that I wouldn't be able to leave.
Hmm.
Um, and one day when they were all gone, I just ran into the closet and like started taking everything out, all the papers, anything out that I could find. Like, my heart's racing and I'm just like looking for it. And I find I find it all together, the birth certificates and our cards. And I just get on my knees and start crying. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, do you want me to die? Like, do you want me to, why would you be so against me? And I'm your daughter. We're family,
Hmm.
I'm your blood, and I just felt so alone. I felt so like nobody's with me. Nobody sees me. Nobody can comprehend what's going on in my mind.
Hmm.
And um I just stayed crying on my knees for a bit until I was able to apply there. I got everything ready. they helped me come up with a plan to leave, a safety plan, and I got everything and I left of like 2 weeks before Christmas in December of, um, I believe it was 2018. So my son was, still a baby when I left over there, and, I that was the first time that I left, and, I did started getting a little bit back more into God, into Christianity. Like I said, it was a Christian place. They did have us go on a Tuesday class, to be taught, the things about God. It was a requirement in order to stay there, and, um, I did feel grateful for being there, but I was still very much like, I think it was there that I left it was there that I left Christianity. I made up my mind. I was like, "You know what? If this is what it's all about, I don't want anything to do with it." All these people claim to be Christian, and they've literally destroyed my life. And I don't want anything to do with Christianity, Christians, that church that I went to. Um, I didn't want anything to do with it. And I was like, from now on, I just believe in God and that's it. And
Mm.
I'm not a Christian. And that's actually when, um, my new age journey started.
Hmm.
Ironically, but,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's where it started.
So you're in, is it technically like a shelter, would you call it? Or is it,
Yeah, it's like a shelter. They called it a transitional living facility, but
yeah, yeah. That,
it's a shelter.
no, yeah, no, yeah, no, it makes sense. So you're there, you're having to go to kind of like studies, or I don't know, maybe just teaching times or something on Tuesdays. What are you doing the rest of the week? Are you like holding down a job? Are you just taking care of your kids? Like what does that look like? And also typically with those types of that type of housing, it's pretty like well hidden. Like does your family know where you are, or they don't know where you are?
I'm not, sure if they knew exactly where I was. They were worried about me. They were sending me money.
Hmm.
I was very much sheltered growing up. Like, I didn't really have to do anything for myself. I didn't really
Hmm.
have to clean or do chores or, I didn't really know how to do anything. So even when I gave birth, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to sanitize their bottles, even though I breastfed my children. But when I was going to university, I would, put milk and leave the bottle and go to university. And I just felt so insecure and so stupid at everything. Like, I'm like, I don't know how to do anything. Mom, please do everything. And she really took over everything. So being out
Hmm.
on my own was just like, oh my gosh, this little girl's out on her own. She's, 24 years old. She doesn't know anything about the world. And so it was required that I got a job while I was at school. They paid for the daycare so I could continue my degree
Hmm.
and work. But since coming from a background and upbringing of not having to do anything, I felt like I'm not gonna work and go to school and take care of these kids. Like, I felt like it was too much. But I mean, I eventually did get a job, but I was very resistant towards it while I was there. But they said, it was a required. Why are they paying for daycare and I'm only going to school? Um,
Hmm.
so I did get a job. Um, I was living there. Yeah, the place is hidden. It's really to protect mothers.
Hmm.
Um, I I don't know if they knew. I mean, we did still have some contact. At one point, I was coming over to their house on the weekends because it was kind of like this pool. Like, the people at the shelter were saying, don't spend so much time, they're not safe. and they're like, "Oh, happy family. Let's have a happy family again." And I feel like I was just so consumed in my pain, and I wanted them, to love me, and I wanted them to accept me, and I wanted them to see me like, I'm your daughter, and accept me and love me, and give me the love that I need. And I really was, going into that, but they were just like, "No, no, 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 like, don't go in so fast, we really need to
Hmm.
be careful." And um I stayed there for a year. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in psychology. My son took his first steps there. Um and then I moved out. I got a job. I got an apartment, which I didn't last long in, before I went back to my parents' house.
Hmm. And while all this is happening, while you're getting your degree, you're working a job and all that, you said you kind of fell into more of a new age belief system. What was that specifically? Like what did that look like?
Um, so I was just really kind of like, screw all the rules of Christianity. I'm just gonna do whatever I want, which was, just getting into things that I knew weren't good, but I didn't care anymore because I felt like nobody cared about me, so why should I care?
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, well, I just want to survive and make money to live on my own. And, I'll just do whatever I have to do to survive. And it was just it was just kind of like a free spirit kind of thing. I didn't really start looking for other. Oh no, I did go into some Hindu temples while I was there. Um so I was exploring a few things, but it was nothing too intense that got exploring more deeply into the religions kind of happened a little bit later because there I was just, dealing with two babies and I was very consumed by them.
Hmm. Okay. And so you move into an apartment, which is kind of a short-lived thing where you ultimately move back in with your parents, right?
Mhm.
At the time that you go to the transitional housing, are you still married or is this after you've separated from your husband at the time?
We were still legally married. We had
Hmm.
just, separated since I
Sure.
left. Um, and then he actually had to go back to his country to go over the process of becoming a resident. So he was whenever I was there, he was here in the US for a little bit, but then he left.
Okay. All right. And so then after you graduate, you're in your apartment and then you go back to your parents. Is he still in the picture or is he kind of not in the picture at that point?
So that was around COVID. So his stay over there in his home country got extended because it got
Ah,
delayed. It got delayed significantly. So eventually he did come back, and I wanted to go on a trip. Um, to I wanted to go to on a trip and, you know, spend that, whatever, that money that we were getting.
hmm,
And the flights were so cheap, so I was like, "Well, let me do something for myself. Now that you're back, you stay with the kids and I'll go do something fun."
hmm,
Um, and at that point, my family was threatening the police. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention, before I left to the shelter, they were threatening to call CPS on me if I left the house with the children. They were like, "Oh, we're
hmm,
gonna say that you're violent with them. We're gonna say, this and that."
hmm,
And so there was a lot of, and even before that, those threats of CPS kept me there. Um because I was afraid of, them following through with it. But which they eventually did multiple times. There was multiple times that CPS got involved.
hmm. So you go on a trip? Or do you go on a trip? You want to go on a
I
trip?
actually did go for a week. Think it was too long. I should have gone for a few more, like just a few days.
Yeah.
But when I came back, they were threatening me. They're saying, we have a big surprise when you come that you will never forget. And oh, and actually before I left to the shelter, I had two Pomeranians, which they sold them because I couldn't take them with me to the shelter.
Hmm.
And then they gave me the money that they got from selling them. They gave me that money for Christmas.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the trip was just to kind of get away, just to
Yeah.
kind of have fun. At the same point, you're looking into, I mean, so you're saying new age, but really it's just kind of, you're just kind of like open to whatever isn't
Whatever.
Christianity, right? Is kind
Yeah.
of what it sounds like. Do you ultimately ever like land on like a specific belief system? I know we were talking kind of pre-roll that there were a few things you were looking into, but do you ever kind of land on anything?
So, I there was one stand at the University of Muslims giving like sharing Quran. I think yeah, I was at that time when I don't remember what was happening, but a lot of people were very critical of any Muslim that they saw because there was a lot of terrorist attacks going on at that time. And they were just trying to prove themselves to be peaceful.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, cool, I'll take a Quran home and look at it, and I looked into it, and then I went to go meditate at a Hindu temple, which I went to two different ones, which at one, there was a girl that was clearly under the influence of something. And then the preacher guy got actually very irritated at her. And it
Hmm.
was kind of like he was supposed to be preaching to us. And it felt like it was supposed to be like a holy scenery, but he kept continuously getting annoyed at this girl that was on something, some kind of drug.
Hmm.
And it kind of felt like off, like, something is weird about this and weird about this guy as well. And then when I went to a different temple, I meditated in there with them and I chanted the Hare Krishna with them. And while I was chanting that, I saw a lot of like in my head, like right here when my eyes were closed, it was just like a whole bunch of like, whenever someone takes a picture of you with flash and then you see a whole bunch of colors and lights and,
Mm-hmm.
flashing things. That's kind of what was going on in my mind there. So I thought that was weird, but it was also kind of cool. Um, but I didn't really stick with it because something like I said, just something felt off whenever we went to go eat together after, you know, oh no, after the meditation and chanting, we went into a room where someone would be teaching us or preaching to us. And I never went back to those places because like I said, something felt off within the room. I didn't know what it was. So I was just like, well, I'll just keep looking at something else.
Hmm.
I did go pretty consistently to Ekankar, that religion, which I forgot what the word "hu" means. HU. It means something, but they hum it. So it's kind of like when you meditate it, you say "hu," and then you just keep it like that whole time.
Hmm.
And they really believe in like past lives, and uh ancestral, what is it called, like ancestral, kind of like you live another life and a whole bunch of other things like that.
So like
And
reincarnation sort of things?
yeah, I think so. And visions and dreams, and I went there pretty consistently, and I took my whole family, and I took, my children there. They had, a kids class.
Hmm.
Um, and, they had on the wall like frames of people that had been reached that enlightenment. Um, but I never felt the presence of God in any of those places, like how I felt it whenever I was 12 years old.
So when you say that you were kind of things felt a little off, and maybe it's hard to kind of quantify that, but like what is that feeling like things are off to you?
Like it was not true.
Hmm.
Like there was something deceptive about it. There was something like hiding behind a curtain, that was not like it was not that's not what it was. But
Hmm.
it wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't authentic, or it didn't feel like, that presence of realness, like, oh yeah, this is it. This is, where I'm supposed to be.
I see. But it sounds like you were pretty consistent going to the Eckankar like
Hmm.
services or that sort of
Hmm.
thing. Okay. So then how long, because it's not like you said you took your kids to it as well. So how long did that go on for?
It went on for a little bit, on and off. I was kind of just, I just felt lost. And so sometimes I would go, and other times I'd be like, I don't even know if that's where we should be going.
Hmm.
And it was on and off for maybe a year.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
And then after a year goes by, what kind of seals it for you that you don't want to go back? Do you go somewhere else or do you just kind of stop going anywhere?
So I had tried different ways to leave my marriage, because I did get back with my husband, even though I had went to the shelter, escaped from him, and like, all these things. Um, I did get back with him. I felt very insecure and weak, and like I couldn't live on my own with the kids. I felt like it was too much. I was like, I can't
Hmm.
do this. And it was a lot of, family members were also influencing me to get back with him, and that, he isn't bad. And like, I just need to deal with some things and it'll be fine.
Huh.
Um, and so I just kind of like allowed those things to like swing me back into comfort where I didn't have to be uncomfortable anymore. Well, like at least I know this is familiar. This is, my familiar um dark place that I've always been in and that I know very well.
Hmm.
Um and so I went back into it, and oh, well, after the trip, that was whenever I started my sequence of like going to this house, going to that house, trying to like get away. And but it didn't matter where I went. I felt that evil spirit going with her with me.
So okay, so hold on a second. So you've taken your trip. You're back. Okay, so two things then. Going from house to house. So are you taking your kids with you or are you going by
Yes,
yourself?
I'm
Okay.
taking my kids with me.
So is are these like friends houses, family members
Family
houses?
members' houses.
Okay, so just like extended family, aunts, uncles,
Yeah.
grandparents, cousins, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so there was a spirit chasing you. What is that? Okay, so when did that start, and what do you mean by that? Like a dark spirit or evil spirit was chasing you?
Well, I think it was all around the same time, like whenever I started becoming depressed around, 12 years old, whenever that kind of fire started dying down, that I was on fire for God. I had felt the Holy Spirit at 12 years old. But all of that started to go away, and I did feel an evil spirit at, in the home. Um, and it was violently shaking the doorknob, like turning it fast like this. And I cried out to, my siblings and like, hey, because they were downstairs. Back then we had, the home computer, the desktop, that's where you could go, use the internet. And so they were on the home computer in that computer was in my parents' room. And I was like, come upstairs right now. Like, what is that? Like, the door going like this. I was like, first, I was kind of like, stop playing around. Like, you're just trying to scare me. But there was no response.
Hmm.
And then they're all the way downstairs and I'm upstairs. And then I was like, come upstairs now. Cause I was like, hey, like I just repeated their name like several times and there was no response from the door. Um, and then they're like, I'm downstairs. I'm like, come upstairs now. And they're like, no, you come downstairs. And I was like, no, I'm too scared to go open the door. Like, come upstairs. And they eventually came upstairs, like maybe, I don't know, it felt like an eternity. And I was like, that wasn't you that was, doing the door like that? And they're like, no. I was like, promise? And they're like, no. Like, um, and after that, I had a few other experiences. And then my older sister confirmed it with me because she would be awake late at night. And she's about 4 years older than me. And I'm like, hey, have you ever felt or seen anything happen here? Um, like the cabinets or like, heard something or felt something there. And she's like, oh yeah, all the time, but I just ignore it. And I'm like, what?
Hmm.
And so she'll like see like a cabinet open and close and then be like, and just keep walking. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so that started here. It started, at home. But whenever I left on the trip and I was coming back and they said, "Oh, we have a big surprise for you." I was like, "No, no, no, I'm not gonna stay there." I didn't feel safe and I felt threatened. And I was like, "Well, I'll just move somewhere else, I'll get my kids and go somewhere else." And when I was there, I didn't have a job, but I was looking for a job. I did have some money saved up, but I did experience it again there. It was a presence, and it also was like, something that had like a light that turned on or off, and there was nobody home but me. Um, and things like that happening there. And then I left that house and I went to another one because, they said, we don't want to get in all your family problems. It's just better if you go and we don't want to deal with this drama.
Hmm.
And so I went to someone else's house and there I experienced the same things, in the kitchen. I was, by myself in the home, nobody else is there. And somebody's, doing things in the kitchen, like rambling with, you know, moving around containers, like plastic containers that were, just drying on the side of the sink um and stuff like that, or moving something where it wasn't there. And so it was making sure that I knew it was there anywhere that I went.
And so, okay, so this is something though that was kind of present with you from the age of 12.
Hmm.
And so it would just make itself kind of known wherever you were. Did it ever happen outside of like the home? Did it ever happen like in school or while you were at the shelter or the transitional housing? Did it happen there?
I don't think it happened there.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if it happened there. It might have not happened there. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, and did you ever get to kind of the point like your older sister where you're like, and don't care, ignoring it? Like, how?
No, I've always been a scaredy cat. I've always been
Okay.
like, "What is that?" And like, like a cat, like all their hairs go up. I turn like that towards anything.
Yeah. So, and this is happening consistently when you're staying at other family members' housing for a little while. Um, this is also happening while you're looking into things like Hinduism, Islam. What was the other one?
Ekankar.
Ekankar. Do you ever bring this to anybody's attention at any of those places? Like, say, hey, have you guys ever had some spirit rattling Tupperware and doorknobs and opening and closing cabinets at your house? Like, you talk
I
to anybody about
actually
that?
I actually told them my family members that were living there and they were just like, "Oh."
Hmm.
So it wasn't really like, it was kind of like, oh, okay. Like they probably honestly didn't even believe me. And
Interesting.
so it's like I didn't really have anyone to tell. I feel like because anything that I always say, because I was really felt like I was deemed as just a crazy person that is just like irrational, like, oh, whatever, she's just, ranting off something else. Um, so I honestly might have kept it to myself, but I did bring it to the attention of the people, of the family members that I was living with.
Hmm.
But it didn't really matter.
Did you ever tell any of the places where you're going, like attending, like any of the temples or anything like that? Did you talk to anybody there about it?
I didn't get that far with them because
Mm,
I was just really there to experience, what it was, and
mm.
just kind of exploring to see if that felt like, well, like if it felt like it was for me, like if this is where I feel like, it's true.
Sorry, the whole thing about the spirit just kind of blows my mind. And what I mean by blows my mind is kind of how nonchalant everyone is with it. Um, I I mean, there's a part of me that wonders if maybe your family is, it's not that they necessarily don't believe you, but maybe they're like your older sister where it's like, yeah, we get it, but there's nothing we could do, so we just kind of ignore it. And I don't know if that's how your family is with things or not, but I don't know. I feel like there's like it's almost like every family has sort of like, oh, there's just this thing that happens and we just don't question it and we just let it happen. And so
Yeah.
like in my mind, it's almost like I almost get like this phrase of like making peace with the spirit, even though we don't know anything about it. We just accept that it's there, and then it kind of just gives it free reign to do whatever it wants to do, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
You
So,
know,
oh,
honestly, thinking about it, at one point, I asked my mom because I was really scared. I think it was at my parents' home, if because we do have an uncle that is a priest, if he could bless it, because I felt like I was being so tormented and scared every night. And my sister used to watch a lot of scary movies when we were younger, and I honestly feel like maybe that brought a lot of bad spirits because um her room was right next to mine, and I would just be like in my room by myself like this, like, hearing things, and just being like, my whole body like hot and like just feeling terrified.
hmm. So w- it sounds like you ultimately do move back in with your parents, right?
I moved
After,
back with them multiple times.
yeah, yeah. Well, I know you were kind of living with some other family members, but then ultimately kind of made your way back around. Um, Are you at this point, are you working? Are you like, what are you doing? Like raising your kids, obviously, but like, are you, because I know you said you'd gotten your bachelor's degree in psychology. So are you like doing anything at this point?
No, I was honestly having nightmares of going to the shelter because they told me it was required that my kids go to a daycare,
Hmm.
which I was absolutely terrified of putting them in a daycare. Um, and while I was actually at the shelter, I did get a tarot reading, or I got a palm reading.
Hmm.
I had went to a HEB, a grocery store, and some lady just looked at me, like locked eyes with me, and she was like, "I feel like I know you from somewhere." And I kind of like was like, "Huh?" Like, I don't know. I've never met you. And she just kind of got me like that, like, "Oh, well, I know this and this about you and all these other things, and a red car is gonna I don't know, she said something about a red car
Hmm.
um that if you see a red car, this and this. And then she wanted me to give her more money if I wanted her to like light a candle and like do this some kind of, I don't know, procedure about what was happening in my life. And I felt too scared, and I told her no, and I deleted her number and I blocked her number.
Hmm.
And I honestly felt scared that she even, touched my hand, but I was just letting her do all these things. Even though I was interested, but I also kind of felt like fearful, like I didn't know what it was. But I was interested to hear what she would say because I was at that time open, to different things.
Hmm. So, was she right? Was she pretty accurate, or was she just getting a lot of your money?
And she was just saying generic things that were kind of
Yeah.
hooking me in. I was obviously going through a lot of trauma and a lot of pain at the time, so I was just kind of like, "Oh, yeah, maybe this person knows something," you
Yeah.
know? So
I so I mentioned earlier this is not at all related to palm reading or tarot cards or anything like that, but it just reminds me of the way that she kind of it got you at the HEB, where she's like, "Hey, do I know you?" Like I had an experience at a music store in Lansing in Michigan. I'm out of Michigan, and I saw somebody there, and I'm like, I could have swore I saw them at church one time, and so I was like, "Hey, do I know you from somewhere?" And they kind of like walked away, and I was like, excuse me, like, 'cause I just had such a strong, like, I know this person, They said,
yeah.
"Hey, do I know you from somewhere?" And they like turned around and just real gruffly said, "Probably from the movies," and walked away. It was Jeff Daniels.
Oh,
Fro
wow.
and I was like, "Oh." He probably thought I was like some person like tried to scam him, or I don't know what, maybe just annoy him,
Yeah.
or pretend like I didn't know who he was, but I did think he was like some guy that I just saw from church, which was like, no, no, actually, I did not, in fact, see him from church, but yeah, no, that's so, yeah, but I feel like that's something that, I'm sure that woman is still, if she's still doing it, still making comfortable money saying, "Hey, do I know you from somewhere? Oh, let me
Mhm.
read your palm. Let me do this." And there are a lot of people who are, um, seeking like you were, where it's like, "Well, I'm open to it. Let's see what happens. What's the worst that could happen? She's wrong
Yeah.
and I'm out however much money she asked me for." And but
Mhm.
at the same point, I think it is a little bit tricky because, like you said, you like got scared at one point and kind of like blocked her number, deleted all her stuff. But if in fact she does have any sort of power and you don't give her money, then there is this kind of thought of like, well, what if she wanted to do something bad? Like what
Yeah.
if, and
That's exactly what I was thinking because I refused. She was like, "Okay, now that I already touched your hand and, I know your information and I know your, weakness or whatever, that she'll like, do some kind of spell or curse on me."
yeah.
And that's what I was, fearful about. And I think she did say something like, "Oh, if I don't do it with all these candles, then it won't be that effective," or something like that. And I got scared and blocked it. And I was like, after that I was like, what am I getting myself into? Like, this is not what I wanted. But I think, those people really, like, there's a lot of people out there that are vulnerable and that are like looking for love or feel like rejected from, their family or, from everyone like me, I felt isolated. And then like, oh, someone's giving me some kind of attention. Maybe they could, help fix my problems or help me feel loved or help me feel, like I'm something.
Hmm. Well, and I think the challenge with feeling like you want to be open to everything, I don't know why, but I get this image of like you go to a store and it's like, I need to buy toothpaste because I want to brush my teeth. Well,
Mhm.
there you could buy ketchup, put it on a toothbrush, and it may do something, mustard, you name it, anything, right?
Yeah.
But until you find the toothpaste and you use it, you're not really accomplishing what it is that you're reaching out for. But I think that the trick is you could try ketchup, but there's also a lot of hazardous things that you would not want to put on a toothbrush and into your mouth as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's that is something that I'm very curious about for anyone who is like, well, I'm just open. Well, if you're open, what are you open to? Like literally, you're open to whatever the universe has for you.
Mhm.
Well, it has everything. And I think that's the hard part is when you hear somebody who says they're open to spiritually to things like, it's all light and love. But if that's all that exists, then what's the point? Right? I
Mhm.
mean, like, if everything is light and love, then there is no light and love because everything is light and love. And if everything is something, then nothing is something as well. And what's the point? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I think that that's really the trick is everybody thinks that they're doing something beneficial to them or beneficial to the people around them or whatever, but they really don't know what it is they're putting on that toothbrush. If they're just kind of opening up for everything. I think that's an awful analogy, but for whatever reason, that's just the one that came to my mind. But
Yeah.
so you were open to um this person at the HEB, right? You're like, hey, why not? Let's see what happens. Let's roll the dice. Let's make this work. And then ultimately you're not comfortable with the direction that they're pushing you in, because they're just getting more money from you as well,
Mhm.
Um so at what point do you continue on with this for a while, like the new age sort of mentality? Like, do you get into, into more like practicing yourself, or just having people read your palm, or going to get tarot card readings, things like that? Like, what does that look like for you?
So the next couple of years, I just really focused on self development, personal development, all the self help books that I could find, all the motivational speakers, all the successful people, say affirmations, say these things, manifest, law of attraction, all of these things. And um I decided, like, well, if I'm gonna leave my marriage, then I need to work, I need to get a job. I can't, just leave with no money. So I did start a job, which was really, really bad because I was working 9 to 9 every day.
Oh.
And I was leaving my kids, at school and daycare. And then after the school and daycare, they would go with a sitter. And it was just exhausting for all of us. So that went on for about 2 years because I was in my own way, in my own knowledge, trying to leave the marriage and trying to do things my own way, which ended up just falling apart because I couldn't sustain it any longer. And when my youngest daughter, got really hurt at the sitter's house. Um, she doesn't even know what happened to her. She fell, she's only like a year old, and she had
Mm.
like a giant ball on her head because she fell and she wasn't watching her.
Mm.
So after that, I was, the our marriage was just, in shambles. And I was like, my job was in shambles. I was so depressed, and I was getting to work. I was getting late to work every day. They're like, if you're late again, we're gonna fire you. And I was like, I didn't even care. And then that happened with my daughter. So everything just came crumbling down at once.
Mm.
I didn't have a job anymore. My daughter got hurt. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stay home with her for a year. I was a stay-at-home mom for the most of the time, for the most part, until I got that job again. And then after everything came crashing down, I was like, let me just stay home for a year. Let me at least let her turn 3 before I go back into the workforce and have to put her, again in someone else's care. At least, at that point, she might be able to talk and communicate if someone hurts her. So I stayed home, even though our relationship was horrible. And it was at that point that, I was still depressed. I was still miserable. I was, still all of these things. I was like right back to square one. And, um, but this time I just, you know, we got into an argument in the car. We were going, somewhere. He had asked me to, do something for him, and I didn't want to do it. But he was like, okay, if you don't want to do that and help me, do this, then, I'm gonna turn the car around. And I'm not gonna pay. I had asked him if I could speak to someone, and it was a $900 consultation with this guy to basically evaluate me, like every single part of me, like a holistic kind of approach, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought like, oh yeah, I'm on to like holistic, healthy living, it's all mind, body, spirits, it's all in one, you don't just focus on, just pharmaceuticals and that's it. You have to take in mental health and emotional health and all this stuff. So I wanted to see this guy, and I was like, please, like, I asked him to pay for it, and that it'll help me and it'll help our marriage, you know. Um and he had already paid for it, but then he just said, "Oh, just call the bank and cancel it and say that I didn't authorize it. And then I'm gonna turn the car around and we're not gonna do this." And it was just at that point that I just felt like, I'm on the ground. I don't have a job. I don't have any money. I don't have any savings. How am I supposed to pay that guy the $900? And I just felt um just an extreme, like, irresistible force from in my body from head to toe of just like come over me like that and just like get out of the car, just like get out from there, get away from there. And it was kind of like that scene again, like whenever I was 15, just open the door. I don't care, even though the car was moving, and just get out. We were in the car. Um, I was screaming at him whenever, this was happening. I felt that urge come over, take over my whole entire body completely. And I was ready to just like, go out. And I look to my left, and I see my son. He's in his car seat, and he's just like this crying, going like crying, "Ugh," like scared, like just so scared. And I just stare at him, and it kind of like time stops for that moment. And I just like feel like I need to breathe because I felt like I couldn't breathe. Um, and I just cried the whole way home. I was like, I can't do that to my son. I don't want him, to be that last memory that he has of me. And I came home, and I put myself under the covers, and I just lay down in darkness the rest of the day and the whole night. And just my mind was just racing thoughts, like, if I speak to a therapist, if I speak to anybody about, what I'm thinking, they're gonna call CPS, they're gonna put me in a white room, the kids are gonna be taken. I was just, freaking out about what to do. I don't feel like I'm damned if I talk about it, and I'm damned if I don't talk about it. And I just felt stuck, and I felt like I hit a brick wall again. Where do I go? What do I do? And the next day, I got in the shower, and I was just like, Jesus, like, I just surrender my life to you. And I surrender my kids to you. I surrender everything. I don't want to live my life the way I've been living. I've, been destroying my life. And I'm on my knees, and I'm on the ground, and I just give my life to you because I don't want to live, but I know that for whatever reason, you have me here to live. And you gave me these kids, and you trusted me with them to care for them. And I can't leave them. And even though I want to, and I don't, and I said, please, make a way. I don't know what to do. I asked him to leave the very next day. He got all his stuff and left. And I begged him, not to take the car because we had one family car. He had his work van. And if he took the car, I just would even feel like worse because, like, no job, no car, no money. Like, what am I gonna do? And he took it, and he drove off with it. And I just felt like a deep sword pierced my heart, and it fell to the ground. And I just felt like, you know, God, just make a way. Um, Even though I feel like I'm literally like just a ball of nothing. And I, was applying for jobs. And um 2 weeks later, after all of that happened, um, I um I got a job,
Hmm.
and it only took 2 weeks.
So after you are kind of under the covers and you take the day, um, what what made you? I think you said you were like going to take a shower or were in the shower or whatever. What made you say like, okay, I surrender all to Jesus? Like what happened? Did something lead up to that moment, or like what was it that was like, all right? I surrender it all to Jesus now.
Yeah, I was just like, I give up, because I had felt God's presence in Christianity as a Christian, when I
Hmm.
was 12 years old. And I felt, that was the Holy Spirit. And this whole time I've just been, ignoring it or acting like it's like not for me, because of all that church hurt that I experienced. And because of, how people could paint this religion. And I was like, I don't want anything to do with the religion. But, I've learned that we can't compare God to people. And, not all these people will represent, who God is. And the reason that I chose, Christianity and I chose Jesus was because I had um, felt his presence before.
Hmm.
And I was like, God, I know you're there, and I've just been avoiding you and trying to get away from you and ignoring your existence and acting like, there's something else out there that's better that instead of that, um, because I didn't want to be associated with all this anger and force and violence that I had associated with Christianity.
Hmm. So it wasn't as just kind of out of the blue, but it seems like a lot of your life as you were kind of looking into these different religions, different new age practices, all this sort of thing. It was not necessarily, I mean, it was to find something, but maybe it was almost like, you knew you had a very real experience when you were younger, as a Christian. And so it's almost like you're trying to find that fire again, but somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
I mean, I think ultimately it sounds like you recognize that everywhere else you went to find it, it just wasn't there for you, you know. So you surrender your life, you surrender your kids, um, you part ways with your husband, who then takes your only vehicle, your only mode of transportation, and like you said, the real world still has to happen. Even amidst amazing spiritual things happening, the real world still keeps going, right? And so you
Yeah.
look for a job, you find a job. Um, when was this? How long ago was that happened?
Um, it was last August, 2024.
Okay. So like a little over a year ago that this all
Mhm.
had happened. So you've kind of surrendered your life to God again, or I guess finally, or however you want to word it, but like so a little over a year ago.
Mhm.
So what's been happening over this past year?
So I, he everything that I was looking for in my own power, like the job wise. For example, like I had mentioned that I was working 9 to 9 at that job, and it was commission only. I was trying to do sales because I was like, I want to live a good life. I want to live a comfortable life and, make good money. And everything that I was trying to do in my own strength and power didn't work. And with this job, I just felt like it was exactly what I needed. Like God, like He knows I have 3 kids. He knows I need a flexible schedule. He knows I want to, you know, make more than average money. And it's because I have a heart that I want to help others and I want to help other single moms. I want to help children. I want to help other people, feel God's love. Um and so he gave me the perfect job that was like every single box checked, that I was like, this is exactly for you and what you need. And so I just felt so loved by that and I felt so cared for and considered that, you know, he gave me exactly what I thought. And I never even knew this job existed. I would have
Hmm.
never even known to look for it or anything.
Yeah.
But just the whole year has just been, it's really just been crying every day and just singing and crying every day.
Hmm.
um, I feel like that whole past year has really just been mourning my loss. of the marriage, and my just like kind of, you know I never got to get that, affirmation or that acceptance that I wanted so badly from my family. And it feels like, I'll never get it. But
Hmm.
everything that has happened has just brought me closer to God. Like, just to depend completely on him and his love, um and that's all that I need. Um and really just one on one, like, the whole time. I did go explore a few churches um throughout the year. But I just kind of felt like maybe I don't even need a community right now, because I'm literally crying every single day of, sadness, and like, why did this have to happen? But at the same time, I was, happy that I had freedom, and that I was with God. And that's exactly, he was what I was looking for all this time. And now I have him. So
Hmm.
a lot of times, I would cry out of sadness, and other times I would cry out of, joy and just like happiness. Like, oh my gosh, I just felt so grateful that, he's in my life, and that we're together, and there's nobody coming in between us now.
Yeah.
And even though it was painful for me, that's what had to happen. And that's what, you know, it led to, in order for me to finally, like, just lean on me, just come to me. Every human is going to fail you. Every human, nobody's perfect, but God is, and he's never going to let us down.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it. It sounds like the idea of surrender, right, is a wholesale giving over of things, right? And so this idea of the last year has been kind of a nurturing time, a nourishing time, right? A time for you to feel and recognize what life looks like. And after having spent a lot of your life wanting to be dead, which I can relate with in a lot of ways. Um, when Jesus says, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life," life feels different when you want to live it. and
Yeah.
and the relationship that we have with God feels worth living for. And I think that there's a real truth to that verse. To live is Christ. And that really is, that relationship that we have with Christ is our life, and it becomes something worth living for. And yeah, I mean, I think that that's awesome. It sounds like it sounds like, though, your relationship with your parents is still pretty rocky. You guys don't really communicate, or
Um, well, we do. I just, I had to have, stronger boundaries
oh
on,
yeah.
how much access and time and energy I give. But God has really been softening my heart. It was very full of hate and anger. But he has been filling me with his love throughout the year, and I do feel a lot more compassion. But it's just, we can it's definitely love with limits.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I
Healthy
mean,
limits, healthy boundaries,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Recognizing something for what it is doesn't mean that you throw yourself into it again. I mean, if you know the fire's hot, you don't go right back to the fire and jump in. I mean, you still recognize it's there, but you give yourself a healthy boundary to not get burned again. I mean, that's
Exactly.
I think that's the difference between learning something and wisdom, and exercising wisdom for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I, I am curious. So I know you said you haven't quite found a church family yet. One thing, though, that I think is so important is how a church should respond to somebody just like you, who's gone through the experiences that you've gone through. I mean, your testimony is layered. It really is. There's a lot that's happening psychologically. There's a lot that's happening physically. There's a lot that's happening spiritually. There's a lot that's happening emotionally. I mean, there is a lot. And that's not to say that you are a lot, but it is to recognize that you've gone through a lot, right? That Jesus has seen you through a lot, right? And so here you are unpacking a lot, uh, moving through a lot of that. Like you said, there's still like a lot of anger and resentment and like all these things that you're unpacking that Jesus is so intentionally and tenderly like peeling away as you
Mhm.
grow with him, right? So if somebody just like you goes to a church, and I know, like you said, you're still trying to find a church, right? What are you hoping for from the church when you get there and and you're just like, here's everything. Here's what it is. You know, what should the church, what are you hoping the church responds to you with?
I would hope, they would just, you know, hug me, have open arms, and just not be judgmental, and just start praying. Starts praying over me. They don't have to know how to fix me. It's not their job. I feel like, some people be intimidated with the amount of trauma that someone comes with. They're like, oh, you need to see a, professional, you need to just go over there. I can't help you with, that's too much for me. Um, just speaking, the living word of God, scripture, is just so nourishing and healing. And it could, really touch someone's heart like mine, and change my mind and change my heart. I could feel at that moment like, wow, that word really, I really took it in and received it. um so I think that's pretty much what, someone like me would want to feel from a church.
You know what that reminds me of is the book of Job. Are you familiar with the book of Job at all?
Yes,
So,
I think so. He went through all the trials.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
He had everything taken away from him, and then three of his buddies come and they just tear into him, and so he's like you're not a good person. You're awful. And it's just this back and forth. It's a very, very, very dense book of like this sort of like logical back and forth. Like, oh, I it honestly is a book that's really interesting to kind of map out with like the 5 stages of grief because Job
Mhm.
goes through them. But my favorite part about Job the last time that I read it was something that it just escaped me from every other time that I've read it before. And I love the book of Job, especially the end because God speaks and it's such a amazing moment. But back in chapter 2, at the very end of chapter 2, there's 2 verses, and it says that his friends see Job from a distance, just in tatters, just a torn, broken man. He's lost everything, and he was living a comfortable life. And so they come to him and they say nothing for 7 days. They just are with him for 7 days.
Mm.
And I was actually reading a little bit of a commentary on it, and it was interesting because a lot of what Job says at the very beginning is, I wish you guys would still be quiet. And part of that was the mourning ritual. Job had lost a lot, so he's in mourning, right?
Mhm.
So part of that is mourn with those who are mourning, weep with those who are weeping, right? Um, but I feel like we miss that a lot as people, right? Humans make up the church, right? So as humans, I feel like we miss that a lot. The gift of time, the gift of silence, right? Like you lived in a world where when you were feeling how you're feeling and depressed and like there's just a lot of chaos going on inside and maybe even outside around you as well, right? And what does God offer to us?
Mhm.
Not a self-help book, right? He offers peace, right? And so when like you're saying, like, if I go to a church, what do I want the church to do? Give me a hug.
Embrace
Be
me.
there.
Yeah.
Be there. Accept
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah.
And I think that I think that there is something to be said for those 2 short verses in Job where his friends recognize that he's in mourning and they just don't talk, but they are present with Job. And I think that there is something very profound in those moments of intentional silence where it's like, I may have a lot of thoughts. I may have a lot of things to offer. I may have so many letters behind my name, it'd like make you crazy, but you don't need any of that. What you need is just quiet and time and presence, right? And I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot, and I think that that's something that churches can really learn from. I think that that's something that churches can really learn from, and I wonder if there's a mentality as a church where it's like, "Hey, we get these people to come in for 2, 3, 4 hours every week. We gotta maximize the time." But sometimes what we really have to do to maximize the time is just be present. And I think that's, I appreciate you saying that, and I hope that when you, are exploring churches, you find a church that is willing to give you presence and time, um, because that is absolutely needed for all believers. Is it amazing to go to church and share a space with other people who believe similar to you? Yeah, absolutely. Is it amazing to lift up our voice and sing together and have this community there? Absolutely. But is it just as necessary for sometimes people to just be quiet and listen to God minister to us in the most quiet and soft, gentle times? Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your time too, Jessica. Thank you so
Oh,
much
yeah,
for sharing your
of course.
testimony, and I pray that God will continue to take all of your history and shine his light on it and use it for his glory, because everything that has happened to you, the good, the bad, and everything in between, he can take and use for his glory, and I don't know how he does it. But he does. He does. And you will run into people who are just like you in a lot of ways, or have experienced things that you've experienced for, or who have experienced things like you've experienced, and you will be ready to say, "Hey, I was there, and you know what got me out of it? Surrender." Wouldn't you love to take everything that makes you angry and just give it away to somebody who knows what to do with it,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, no, and he wants it. And that's the thing that also, being suppressed for so long, it's just kind of like, how could you love me? Like how like it's almost hard even to believe like or accept his love, but it's just like learning to surrender and allowing him to move in my life and like follow him. I want to do his will. I want to, whatever you want, whatever you want. I don't want to live my life. This is your life and whatever you want me to do.
Hmm.
And to feel that, he's my father, that he loves me when I don't even love myself, when I don't even care for myself, when it's struggle, I don't even want to wake up and all these things, and to feel his love, you know, and it doesn't even matter about all those things that I feel about myself. He loves me. So then you start to love yourself because God loves you and you feel his love. And when you feel his love and you start to consume yourself in it every day and really go towards look seeking his love and allowing him to love you, because I think that's one of the things that, like, you know whenever people hate themselves and they don't love themselves, they don't want to allow anyone to love them. They don't, or it's hard or difficult for them to allow God to love them.
I think what I absolutely love about what you just said is that he chooses to.
Yeah. And he wants it.
That's I've taught. I think I've probably talked about this with other people already on the podcast, but I call it the frustrating love of God. It's because I know me, and I know where I've been, and I know how I am, and I know the way my brain works, and I know all the things that I've done, and whatever those things are, I know what they are, and he's still there, and he's ready, and he is so willing to just shower love on me that I don't want, because I don't feel like I deserve it. But like you said, but he says that I deserve it. And when I stop looking at myself through my own lens, but start looking at myself through his, it breaks me in the best way. It makes me want to live for him, to live in a way that's pleasing to him, because he shows me who I am to him. And there's the value that I can't account for that he just holds and knows. And yeah, I love that thought of, it's not that he loves me, but it's that he wants to love me. And that changes it. That really does.
Yeah. And it's just crazy because it's just like, whenever I feel like I want to tell someone about his love, it's like, people are like, oh yeah, you just, hear all the time, Jesus loves you. Like, okay, whatever. But like give him a chance. Like, let him love you. Let him, um, he wants to do all these things. He wants to love you. He wants to bless you. He wants to, sorry, um, he wants to do, he wants to bless you. He came here to give us life, that we may live more abundantly. And that's the thing about it that gets me, because it's just like, it's not like, oh yeah, he has to love me, or oh yeah, this is just a thing. Like, no, like he wants to do all these things for me, and it's like, what? Like, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It makes me think of like the terms that we use, like falling in love with somebody, where it's almost like it's outside of our control, right? But then Jesus is like, hold on a second. Like, I choose to love you. This is me doing it on purpose. It's not like I'm out of my own control and I can't help but love you, but I choose to not help but love you, and I don't know. To me, and maybe it's a little bit antithetical to kind of the American culture of like falling in love and happily ever after and all these things. But I love the fact that I've chosen to love my wife, despite the fact that my feelings may not always be the same level that they always are. Right. It's not like every moment is this explosive, like, oh man, I am so madly in love with my wife, because she's human and I'm human. And I have days like you have days where I just kind of want to be in bed and I don't really want to think about anything. But at the end of the day, I choose to love my wife. Like, outside of the way that I think, outside of the way that I feel, I choose that. Right. And so to have that example in the creator of everything, who's like, hey, I choose to do this. I want to love you. I choose to love you. It changes it for me, right? It changes it from this, well, you love me because you have to love me. You're God, and Jesus loves me. I see all the signs. I hear all the people. But it's not exactly the whole story, right? It's more of this idea that he chooses to. And I know I've probably kind of harped on it already for a few minutes here, but it's like, I really feel like that changes it. It really changes it for me. It's not that God loves me, which is amazing, but that he chooses to. He wants to love me, which makes it more meaningful, if that could be possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I completely agree.
Well, again, I do thank you so much for your time. If anybody is going through anything like you've gone through and they want to reach out to you, do you have a way for people to reach out to you online or anything like that?
Yeah, on TikTok or Instagram, you could just find me at Jessica Escobar-Ramos. Or, yeah, it's jessica.escobar.ramos.
Okay.
It's pretty
Awesome.
long.
That's okay. And I'll have it in the show notes and everything as well, too. So if anybody is wanting to reach out to you, then they'll be able to find you on either Instagram or TikTok. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, Jessica. I really, really do appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your testimony.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope, if it's able to help one person that, is depressed or suicidal, I hope that they know that there's hope. Even when you feel like there's nowhere to go, there's no, you're just up against the wall. God said that he will come and make a way in the wilderness, in the wasteland. And he did it for me, and I know he can do it for